My husband got back in shape and decided he could do better than me, so he filed for divorce, but quickly regretted it. Hey everyone, before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. What's up everyone? It's Brittany here. Buckle up because my life turned into a wild mess not long ago. I'm 34, just your average warehouse manager living in Columbus. My life wasn't flashy, but it was steady. I had a good job, a nice house, and I was married to Make. We'd been together for 5 years, married for 3, and I thought we had a decent thing going. Sure, we weren't that lovey-dovey couple from TV, but we made it work. Bills got paid, we had our date nights, and the occasional argument was just normal marriage stuff, or so I thought. About 6 months ago, Makey decided to go on a big fitness journey. It came out of nowhere, but I was on board. He joined this upscale gym downtown that honestly looked more like a spa than a gym. He got himself a personal trainer, Iva, and suddenly started talking about meal prep, macros, and detox plans. I didn't mind. In fact, I encouraged him. Encouraged? I mean, everyone deserves to feel good about themselves, right? Plus, I figured it was just a phase, like his short-lived woodworking hobby, or that time he got into fantasy football drafts. At first, I even pitched in to help him. I started taking on more of the chores, dishes, laundry, groceries, so he'd have more time to focus on his workouts. I thought it was a way to show him I cared, but slowly things started to shift, and not in a good way. The more weight Make lost, the bigger his ego grew. He became obsessed with his reflection, spending hours in front of the mirror tweaking his gym outfits or snapping the perfect progress pic for Instagram. He wasn't just doing this for himself. He wanted an audience. I remember this one time when I suggested we watch a movie together. It was a Friday night, and I thought we could relax like old times. He scoffed. "Brittany, I don't have time to sit around. I have goals to crush." Goals? What goals? We weren't talking about running a marathon or climbing Mount Everest. He was just lifting weights and drinking green sludge. But whatever, I shrugged it off. Maybe I was being the unreasonable one. Then came the morning. It started like any other. I was half asleep, nursing my coffee before heading to work while Make was downing his usual kale spinach disaster smoothie. He was dressed in his workout gear, scrolling through his phone like his life depended on it. Out of nowhere, he says, "I deserve more in life." I looked up, still groggy. Huh? More of what? He put his smoothie down and stared at me, all serious. "This marriage is holding me back, Brittany. I'm filing for divorce." I swear I thought it was a joke. I even laughed, thinking he was messing with me, but he wasn't laughing. His face was stone cold. "I've outgrown this," he said, like I was some outdated piece of furniture he was ready to toss. "You wouldn't understand." I sat there completely blindsided. My husband, the man I'd shared years of my life with, just dropped this on me like it was no big deal. I tried to process his words, but all I could feel was this mix of shock and anger boiling in my chest. "What do you mean you've outgrown this? Outgrown what?" He sighed like I was a child asking too many questions. "Brittany, I've been working on myself, trying to be the best version of me. And frankly, this life doesn't match my potential anymore. I want more than this house, this routine, this you." His words hit me. He didn't even sugarcoat it. I was part of the problem in his eyes. The life we'd built together wasn't good enough for him anymore. He grabbed his gym bag and walked out the door without so much as a goodbye. I sat there staring at the half-empty glass of green sludge he left behind, wondering what the hell just happened. That day at work was a blur. I went through the motions, but my mind was stuck on Make. Was this real? Was he actually leaving me? We'd had arguments before, sure, but divorce? It felt so sudden, so calculated. And the way he said it, like he'd been rehearsing this speech for weeks, made it clear he'd already made up his mind. Over the next few days, the cracks in our marriage became glaringly obvious. He barely spoke to me unless it was about dividing up the house or setting up mediation. He started staying out late, claiming he was at the gym or with friends. His phone was glued to his hand, and his Instagram was blowing up with selfies and captions like "New chapter, who this?" and "Living my best life." Every post was a slap in the face, a reminder that he'd already moved on mentally, even if the papers weren't signed yet. One night, while scrolling through my own social media, I noticed he'd deleted every picture of us. Wedding photos, gone. Anniversary posts, erased. It was like I'd been scrubbed from his life entirely. Meanwhile, his new posts were racking up likes and comments from people hyping him up. "You're glowing. Such an inspiration." It made me sick. None of these people knew the real Make or what he was putting me through. Another night, I overheard him on the phone while I was getting ready for work. He was in the kitchen, talking to someone in that fake, sugary voice he used when he wanted something. "Yeah, I just feel so free now," he said. "I'm finally doing what makes me happy." He paused, then giggled. "She doesn't even get it. She's stuck in the past." That was the moment it hit me. Make wasn't just leaving me. He was reinventing himself, and I was the anchor he was cutting loose. But here's the thing. I'm not the kind of woman to just roll over and take it. He thought he could steamroll me and walk away with everything. But he was in for a rude awakening. This was only the beginning. And if Make wanted a fight, he'd get one. But wait, it gets worse. One afternoon, I'm grabbing lunch at this cafe near work. I'm minding my business, scrolling through my phone, when I overhear these two women at the next table. They're talking about some fitness guy they found online. I didn't pay much attention until one of them said his name, Make. My stomach dropped. They were laughing, talking about how he had some premium content he was promoting. At first I thought, no way, not Make. But then one of them showed his Instagram on her phone. It was him, my Make. They went on about how he'd started teasing an OnlyFans account, posting links in his bio like for the real workouts. My blood boiled. This wasn't just some fitness phase. He was using his newfound freedom to become a full-blown thirst trap for money. When I got home, I confronted him. He was sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone like nothing had happened. "Make," I said, trying to keep my cool. "What the hell is this OnlyFans thing I'm hearing about?" He looked up completely unfazed. "It's my body, Brittany, my choice, and it's none of your business anymore." I couldn't believe his nerve. None of my business? We're still married. You're out here selling yourself on the internet while I'm trying to hold our lives together. He rolled his eyes like I was some outdated fossil who just didn't get it. "It's not selling myself. It's content creation. Plenty of people do it. Besides, it's not like you're paying my bills anymore." That's when it hit me. Make didn't just want a divorce. He wanted a whole new life. One where he was the star, the main character, and I was just some extra he'd written off. He wasn't embarrassed or apologetic. If anything, he was proud, like he'd finally found his true calling as an online spectacle. Over the next few weeks, his antics escalated. He started dressing like he was auditioning for a reality show. Tight shirts, flashy watches, cologne strong enough to choke a horse. Every time he walked out the door, he looked like he was heading to some red carpet event, not the grocery store. And the captions, they got worse. "Living my truth. No more holding back." And the one that made me want to throw my phone. "He's not a husband anymore. He's a force of nature." The audacity. While Make was out playing celebrity, I was stuck dealing with the fallout. Lawyers, paperwork, etc. But Make wasn't as untouchable as he thought. My lawyer, Steve, absolute legend, had been doing some digging. Turns out he'd been seeing a gold digger. And with a gym membership, I think you could guess whom I'm talking about. Stay tuned, folks. Things are about to get messy. I'll update you ASAP. Update 1. What's up again, Reddit? It's Brittany, your favorite soon-to-be divorced woman with a front row seat to my ex's drama-fueled, glow-up disaster. If you've been keeping up, you know my husband Make decided he was too good for this life, left me high and dry, and has been parading around town like he's some fitness celebrity. But let's talk about the woman who's been fueling this whole mess. Iva. Yep, his personal trainer. Real original, right? The second I heard her name, I knew this wasn't just some innocent trainer-client relationship. Iva was the type of woman you'd expect to see on a reality dating show. Perfect hair, spray-tanned, always dolled up like she was about to step on stage. She was all charm, curves, and fake laughs, like she walked out of a bad rom-com. Make wasn't subtle about their connection either. One day, he strutted into the house after his workout, practically glowing. "Eva says I'm the strongest I've ever been," he bragged, not even looking at me. "Yeah, Make. I'm sure Iva also told you she's never trained anyone like you before, because that's her script." A few weeks later, he stopped pretending it was just workouts. He started dropping her name in casual conversations. "Iva's taking me to this new vegan restaurant. Iva said this protein powder is life-changing." Meanwhile, I'm standing there like, do I look like I care? But Make wasn't just name-dropping. He was flaunting her like she was his prize. Word spread fast. Friends started texting me with sightings of Make and Eva all over town. They were holding hands, laughing, and acting like some Instagram couple of the year. Make didn't even try to hide it. One night, he came home bold as ever and said, "Just so you know, Iva and I are dating now. I think it's time you accept that." Oh, I accepted it all right. Accepted that my husband had turned into a full-blown caricature of entitlement. He'd already mentally divorced me, so what did it matter to him if he added a public affair to his resume? The more I learned about Eva, the more my blood boiled. She wasn't just your average trainer. This woman had a history. My lawyer, Steve, who deserves a damn medal at this point, did some digging and found out Iva had pulled this stunt before. Twice, actually. She had a pattern. Find a married man, pump him up with compliments and validation, and encourage him to leave his wife. Then, once the dust settled and the money wasn't flowing, she'd vanish like Houdini. Iva was a professional homewrecker. It wasn't love, it was a hustle. She hyped these men up, made them feel invincible, and rode their wave until it wasn't convenient anymore. And Make? He was the perfect mark. He craved attention and validation like a fish craves water. Iva had him wrapped around her finger, and he didn't even see it. The worst part was how smug he was about it. I heard from mutual acquaintances that Make was already talking about their big plans. He apparently told someone, "Once the divorce is finalized, Iva and I are going to build an empire." Empire? Dude, you're a warehouse manager, not a tech mogul. But sure, dream big. Make wasn't just banking on his own income. He was banking on my money. He was demanding half my savings, spousal support, and even trying to take the house. He thought he could waltz into court, play the victim, and walk away with a golden ticket for him and Eva's new life. Little did he know, my lawyer had receipts, and I wasn't about to roll over. Let me paint you a picture of what Make and Iva looked like as a couple. Imagine a guy who only owns tight workout shirts, standing next to a woman who suddenly thinks she's a Kardashian. They were all over social media, posing in front of fancy cars, not theirs, and tagging themselves at expensive restaurants. I'm guessing Make was footing the bill with the money he thought he'd get from me. It was like they were trying to scream, "Look at us! We're winning." But to anyone with half a brain, it was clear they were overcompensating. Their relationship wasn't without cracks, though. Iva's over-the-top personality started to clash with Make's growing diva complex. One night, I heard him on the phone in the kitchen arguing with someone. "I don't care what your exes said about you, Iva. You're with me now, and I deserve better than your baggage." I didn't catch the rest, but it was enough to tell me their little fantasy wasn't as perfect as they wanted everyone to believe. As much as it pissed me off, there was something oddly satisfying about watching Make go all in on Iva. He'd bet everything on this woman, thinking she was his ticket to a better life. And it was only a matter of time before the house of cards came crashing down. My lawyer and I were making sure of that. After mediation, Make's confidence took a hit. He walked into that room acting like a king and walked out looking like a deer in headlights. It was beautiful. Iva, his ever-loyal hype woman, didn't even try to comfort him. She just sulked behind him, scrolling on her phone. That was my first clue that their little empire wasn't as solid as Make wanted everyone to believe. But let's rewind a bit. Mediation wasn't just a setback for Make, it was a disaster. He thought he was going to come in, cry a little, and walk out with the house, half my savings, and spousal support. His lawyer painted this picture of him as the underappreciated husband who sacrificed everything for my mediocre dreams. You know, mediocre dreams. Me working my ass off at this warehouse job for years. Steve, my lawyer, was ready. He had spreadsheets, screenshots, and even credit card statements to back me up. Make had been burning through our joint account for months before he filed for divorce. We're talking luxury spa days, designer clothes, and $200 dinners. While I was eating leftovers and trying to figure out what went wrong, Steve made sure the court saw every penny he wasted. Then came Iva's skeletons, her past affairs, her pattern of sweet-talking married men, and how she always bailed when the money didn't flow like she expected. The cherry on top? Steve found messages from one of Iva's exes warning Make to be careful. Of course, Make didn't listen. He thought he was different. Iva's smirk was gone too. In fact, she looked downright uncomfortable. She probably realized her little scam was unraveling in real time. Make tried to defend her, saying, "Iva isn't like that anymore." But the evidence was stacked against them. The judge wasn't buying their act. By the end of the session, it was clear Make wasn't going to walk away with the fortune he thought he'd get. "Iva, She looked like she was already planning her exit strategy. After mediation, Make started acting off. He wasn't as smug anymore. He still tried to post his motivational nonsense on Instagram, but the captions got desperate. Instead of living my best life, it was stuff like, growth isn't always easy, but it's worth it. Yeah, sure, Meg. Keep telling yourself that. Iva, on the other hand, was showing her true colors. She was still around, but she wasn't as present as Meg made her out to be. She started skipping out on their public appearances. No more hand-holding at fancy restaurants or couple goals gym selfies. Word got around that she was already flirting with another one of her clients, a younger guy who apparently didn't come with Meg's baggage. Typical. One night, Meg came home late. I was still living in the house with him at the time because legally I couldn't kick him out, and he stumbled in looking absolutely drained. I didn't say a word. I just sat there on the couch watching him. He plopped his designer bag on the counter and sighed dramatically, like he wanted me to ask what was wrong. But I wasn't playing that game. I just went to my room. The next morning, Meg tried to act like everything was fine. He walked around the kitchen making one of his kale smoothies, but his usual smugness was gone. Eva's been busy with her clients, he said out of nowhere. I didn't respond. I knew he wanted me to bite, to ask about her, but I wasn't giving him the satisfaction. A week later, the real drama started. I got a call from Steve. Apparently, Meg had filed some last-minute paperwork trying to claim more assets. He wanted emotional compensation for the stress I'd caused him during the marriage. Yes, you read that right. Meg thought he could get more money by blaming me for his midlife crisis. I couldn't believe the audacity. Steve, being the legend that he is, had already prepared for this nonsense. He filed a countersuit, showing how Meg had drained our accounts and emotionally manipulated the situation to his advantage. He even included his Instagram posts as evidence. The captions alone were gold. Proof that he wasn't some stressed-out victim, but a self-absorbed diva living his best life at my expense. Around this time, Iva officially went MIA. She stopped showing up to their gym sessions, stopped answering his calls, and even blocked him on Instagram. Yes, blocked. Make was losing it. I could hear him pacing around the house, calling her over and over. Eva, call me back. We need to talk. He sounded desperate, and honestly, it was satisfying. Eventually, one of his friends spilled the tea. Iva had moved on to another client, someone younger, flashier, and most importantly, not tied up in a messy divorce. Make was devastated. He tried to play it cool, posting cryptic quotes like, "Sometimes people aren't who they seem, and you can't build an empire with someone who's playing games." But everyone knew what had happened. His perfect woman had bailed the second things got tough. This was when Make's entitlement really started to crumble. He stopped going to the gym. His once glamorous outfits were replaced by sweats and messy hair. He even stopped posting on Instagram for a while, which was honestly shocking. It was like his entire identity had been tied to Eva and the fantasy of their new life, and without her, he didn't know what to do. One evening, he tried to talk to me. "Brittany," he said, standing in the doorway of the living room, "I think we need to reevaluate everything. This divorce, it's been hard on both of us." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. "What are you getting at, Make?" He sighed dramatically, like he was the victim here. "I just think maybe we rushed into all of this. I mean, we had good times, didn't we?" I almost laughed. "Make, you filed for divorce. You told me I was holding you back, remember? Now that Eva's gone, you're having second thoughts? Unbelievable." He tried to play the sympathy card, talking about how lonely he was and how much he'd sacrificed for this marriage. But I wasn't buying it. "Make," I said, cutting him off. "You made your bed. Now lie in it." Make's little fantasy world was falling apart, and I didn't have to lift a finger. Karma was doing all the work. That's it for now, Reddit. I'll update you after the final court decision. And trust me, you won't want to miss it.
Masham.
Update 2. Hey Reddit, Brittany back again. You've stuck with me this long, so get ready for the grand slam of this whole mess. If you've been keeping up, Make, my soon-to-be ex-husband, thought he could dive into court, take everything, and start his new life with Iva, his personal trainer. But karma came calling, and now we're in the final stretch. Let me tell you how the courtroom drama played out, and why Make probably wishes he'd never stepped foot in there. Court day finally rolled around. Make walked in, but it wasn't the usual smug strut I'd gotten used to. No designer blazer, no cocky grin, just him and his lawyer, looking about as confident as a pair of kids walking into detention. He must have known things weren't going to go his way. The energy was off, and honestly, I loved every second of it. On the other side, there I was with Steve, my lawyer. He came prepared, carrying a binder so thick it could have doubled as a doorstop. I wasn't nervous at this point. I had nothing to lose. Make had already thrown every punch he had, and I was still standing. Today was about making sure I didn't just survive this. I won. His lawyer started by presenting his emotional compensation claim. I told you about earlier, painting a picture of Make as this long-suffering husband who had been emotionally drained by my lack of support for his personal growth. Apparently, my refusal to support his fitness journey, aka his affair with Iva, had been a form of neglect. Steve, my lawyer, let his lawyer go on for a while, allowing them to dig their own hole. Then it was our turn. Steve started by systematically dismantling their argument. He showed evidence that I'd not only supported Make, but had gone above and beyond during his so-called fitness journey. He presented proof that I'd taken over household chores, adjusted my work schedule, and even encouraged him to pursue his goals. He read aloud text messages where I offered to make him healthy meals, supported his gym sessions, and even suggested we attend couples fitness classes to strengthen our bond. Then Steve dropped the bomb. Make's emotional compensation claim wasn't just baseless. It was a blatant attempt to cover up his own emotional negligence. He presented emails and texts where Make openly ridiculed me to his friends, calling me boring and deadweight. He even had screenshots of him bragging about Iva and calling me his backup plan. But the real nail in the coffin came when Steve addressed the financial aspect of Make's claim. He presented our bank statements showing how Make had funneled thousands of dollars from our joint account into his luxury lifestyle. Make's lawyer tried to push back, but Steve wasn't done. He unveiled the ultimate piece of evidence, a journal entry from Make that Steve had subpoenaed. In it, Make had written about his master plan to leave me, get everything he could out of this marriage, and use the settlement money to fund his new life with Iva. The judge's face when he read that, pure disbelief. The courtroom was dead silent as the judge flipped through the paperwork, his stern expression growing heavier with each page. Make sat next to his lawyer, visibly tense, his polished nails nervously drumming against the table. His confidence, which he had flaunted so boldly in mediation, had evaporated into thin air. Across from him, I sat with Steve, my lawyer, feeling a mix of anticipation and satisfaction. This was it. The moment everything Make had spun into his narrative would unravel. The judge began by addressing Make's emotional compensation claim. "Mr. Patterson," he said, his voice steady but firm, "your request for emotional compensation lacks any substantive evidence." He paused, letting the words sink in before continuing. "While emotional distress is a valid consideration in some cases, this court requires clear and demonstrable proof. Your claims are based on subjective feelings, not facts." Then the judge turned his attention to Steve's counter-arguments. He recounted the text messages, bank statements, and Instagram captions that painted a starkly different picture from the one Make and his lawyer had tried to present. "Mrs. Patterson," the judge said, addressing me for the first time, "you've demonstrated a clear and consistent pattern of support for your husband during the marriage. The evidence provided shows no indication of emotional neglect. In fact, it suggests the opposite. You went above and beyond to accommodate his needs and aspirations." Make's lawyer tried to interject, stumbling over an objection that the evidence was taken out of context. The judge silenced him with a raised hand. "The context is clear, counselor. Let's move on." Next, the judge turned to the financial aspect of the case. He methodically reviewed the evidence Steve had presented. "Mr. Patterson," the judge said, his tone growing colder, "you withdrew over $23,000 from your joint accounts in the period leading up to this divorce filing. These funds were not used for household expenses or shared needs. Instead, they were spent on luxury items, high-end dining, and personal indulgences. The court finds this behavior irresponsible and in direct violation of your marital financial obligations." Make squirmed in his seat, his face flushing a deep red. His lawyer attempted to downplay the spending, claiming it was part of his coping mechanism during a difficult time. The judge was unimpressed. "Coping mechanisms do not justify financial recklessness," he said sharply. Then came the house. Make had confidently argued he was entitled to half of it, claiming he had contributed emotionally, if not financially, to its upkeep. Steve was ready for this. He provided records showing I had paid the mortgage in full, maintained the property, and even handled renovations, all while Make contributed nothing. The judge didn't mince words. "The house will remain the property of Mrs. Patterson," he declared. "Mr. Patterson, You have no financial claim to it based on the evidence presented." Make's jaw dropped. His lawyer whispered something in his ear, but he waved him off, too stunned to respond. The judge wasn't done. "Furthermore," he continued, "due to the unauthorized use of marital funds, Mr. Patterson is ordered to reimburse Mrs. Patterson in the amount of $23,750. You could have heard a pin drop. Make's lawyer slumped in his chair, visibly defeated. Make himself looked like someone had knocked the wind out of him. His carefully curated narrative had collapsed in spectacular fashion, leaving him with nothing but the consequences of his actions. The ruling was final. No appeals, no loopholes. The judge closed his folder and said, "This court is adjourned." I leaned back in my chair, a wave of relief washing over me. Justice had been served, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. Leaving the courtroom, the tension in the air was palpable. Make's lawyer was already packing up his briefcase, avoiding eye contact with anyone. Make trailed behind him, his head hanging low. For someone who had strutted into this process with the confidence of a reality TV star, he now looked utterly defeated. Steve patted me on the back as we walked out. "We did it," he said with a small smile. I nodded, grateful for his work. He'd not only defended me, but also exposed the truth behind Make's manipulative tactics. As I exited the courthouse, I couldn't help but glance back at Make. He was still standing there, staring blankly at the floor. For a brief moment, I felt a twinge of pity, but it quickly faded. He had orchestrated this chaos, and now he was facing the consequences. Over the next few days, the fallout of the ruling became glaringly obvious. Make was ordered to vacate the house within 30 days, and I made sure to enforce it. He tried to stall, claiming he needed more time to get his affairs in order, but I didn't budge. I reminded him that he'd had plenty of time to prepare while he was busy flaunting his affair with Iva. Begrudgingly, he packed up his things and moved out. Watching him leave that final day was oddly satisfying. He loaded his designer luggage into an old car, one of his friends had apparently loaned it to him, and drove off without so much as a goodbye. The house, once filled with tension and resentment, suddenly felt peaceful. Make's financial situation spiraled quickly. Without access to my income or the marital funds he'd been draining, he was left to fend for himself. He tried to sell off some of his designer clothes and watches, but it wasn't enough to cover the debt he owed me. Word got around that he was borrowing money from friends who were quickly growing tired of his sob stories. As for Iva, she was long gone. She didn't return his calls or messages. One night, about 2 weeks after the ruling, Make showed up at the house unannounced. I opened the door to find him standing there, his once flawless appearance replaced by messy hair and tired eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Brittany," he said softly, his voice cracking, "can we talk?" I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. "What do you want, Make?" He hesitated, wringing his hands. I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I made mistakes, big ones. I let Iva manipulate me. I got caught up in this fantasy, and I ruined everything. Ruined. His words sounded rehearsed, but the desperation in his eyes was real. He wasn't here to apologize out of genuine remorse. He was here because he had nowhere else to turn. "I don't know what you expect me to say," I replied, my tone calm but firm. "You made your choices. You chose Eva. You chose to try and take everything from me, and now you're dealing with the fallout." Tears welled up in his eyes. Can we at least be civil? Maybe start over? I have nothing, Brittany. I'm lost." I stared at him for a moment, feeling nothing but resolve. "Make, I gave you everything. My support, my trust, my love, and you threw it all away. You don't get to come back now and ask for a second chance. That's not how this works." He broke down, sobbing on my porch, but I didn't flinch. After a moment, I stepped back inside and closed the door, leaving him outside with his regrets. Since that day, I've moved on. As for Make, I've heard through the grapevine that he's still struggling to get back on his feet. He's burned bridges, lost friends, and is now facing the reality of his own choices. Sometimes karma doesn't just knock on the door, it kicks it down. And for Make, it left him with nothing but the consequences of his actions.